What is going on, Nuggets Nation, NBA fans? My name is Tom Leuthner. Welcome back in to Nuggets Today, presented by Fan Arch. We obviously have some things to cover, and I want to keep up the content for you guys. So the first thing I want to cover is, while scrolling through X yesterday, all the reports seem to point that Ben Simmons may have found a new home, and that is the Boston Celtics. They're expected to sign him and use the last roster spot on him, which I would assume means that he is getting a vet minimum. Now, it was expected that he was signing somewhere that was going to compete. Now, do I think the Celtics are this huge competitor again without Jason Tatum this year? No, I don't. I'm also interested to see what they do with Anthony Simons' contract, but because they did want to trade it. But supposedly the Simmons news was holding up and freezing the market for guys like Brogdon, Russell Westbrook, other point guards. So I think that, with that being said, it sort of makes me believe that Denver isn't going to target one of those guys. So maybe they look at trading. Maybe they look at moving Najee's contract. Maybe they look at a cheap point guard for a guy like Hunter Tyson or Jalen Pickett. Or maybe they're just going to be comfortable and confident running Bruce Brown and Jalen Pickett as the backup one option. So like I said, I think that it is interesting that that Ben Simmons is freezing the market. He is going to the Eastern Conference, which doesn't really matter as much because I don't think he's a massive factor like guys like Desmond Bane getting traded to the Eastern Conference, or even guys that came to the Western Conference. So I mean, again, like I said, Boston Celtics seem to be the team that he is going to. I'm interested to see if he'll man the 1 there or if he's going to man the 5, because they are lacking big man depth now that they traded Porzingis. They also lost Al Horford, Lou Cornett, so they're stuck with Neemias Queta and Georges Niang now. So, like I said, Ben Simmons is most likely going to the Celtics. Now, talking about it, big man, somebody we've covered before. The Bulls are most likely going to move on from Nikola Vucevic, and I think that is super interesting because Jokic has a relationship with him, and maybe they can move for him. Now, I know I missed the accents in his name. I'm actually not sure how to get that on the Mac keyboard, which is what I'm using, so I do apologize in advance. But, him and Jokic have a good relationship. Now, I know Denver has the backup center in Val. They have Deron Holmes. They have Watson, who's going to run the 4 like I've covered. I think I'd be comfortable with him being the 3 or 4, not a backup 4 or 5. But there's never enough big man depth. Now, like I said, I don't know whether Denver's going to go in the route of looking for a backup point guard, or like we just covered, having Bruce Brown and Pickett run those backup minutes, or if they just want the depth. What if Val goes down? What if Jokic goes down? Now you have a backup big. Deron looked good at the 5 in Summer League, but I think he would be a better 4 around guys like Val and Jokic. He is a good rim protector, and DA does like to run that zone. So maybe we see a lot of, Deron at the 4 when he gets his minutes, backing up a guy like Aaron Gordon. So I wouldn't mind Vucevic. He could shoot. Like I said, their chemistry is there with him and Jokic, but it also gives Jokic the freedom and comfortability to be able to miss games if he really needs to. I know that we saw the beginning of the Thunder series in the playoffs. He came down on his elbow. If Jokic needs to miss a game in the playoffs and they think they're comfortable enough, they're up 2-1, you have 2 centers that can back him up and play legitimate minutes, and that is Val and Vucevic. So why not maybe go out and get him if he's cheap and willing to take the contract? Now, that's the biggest thing. Is he willing to take a contract that Denver's going to be able to offer him? Maybe not, because he's still a starting caliber center in the NBA. Now, Val could probably be a starting caliber center, but he was playing a backup role. Nicola's coming off a Bulls team where he is playing the main center role right now, so I don't think he would be able to, or he would be willing to take a smaller contract. That small at least. But I think that, opposing competing teams rather would be able to go out and would probably go out and look at him, especially if the Warriors don't sign Al, which I know I covered that Kuminga is sort of holding that up at the moment. Talking about DA and the rotation he runs, though, I saw on X that Sleeper Nuggets put up a poll on who they want to see at the backup shooting guard between Tim Hardaway Jr. and Julian Strawther. Now, majority of the votes were for Tim Hardaway Jr., which I would agree with, but I'd also argue that I'd be happy with both of them playing together in lineups around guys like Vucevic and like Valanciunas. So if you're able to, run Tim Hardaway at the small forward, which he was able to do in Detroit, and he was able to do in Dallas, and he was able to do in New York, and you run Strawther at the 2. Now, I know that Strawther has to make up his mind and figure out what he wants to work on, whether it's putting the ball on the floor or playing defense, and I know that the coaches are working with him right now because they keep posting about him being in Denver and continuing to commit to the Nuggets organization. And with Bruce Brown at the 1, if you lack a little bit of defense at your shooting guard, it's not the worst thing in the world when you have a guy like Hardaway at your small forward, a guy like Bruce Brown at your 1, a guy like Deron Holmes or Aaron Gordon at the 4, Cam Johnson even, who can all play defense, and then your 5 is either Val or Jokic, which I wouldn't mind. Now, like I said, I would not mind seeing a lineup of them two at the shooting guard and small forward around Jokic at times, which I'm sure we'll see at times if they want to split the minutes between them two. But I wouldn't mind if you're going to bring a little bit of the bench guys in with the starters and you want to sit Cam for a little bit, you want to sit Brown, and you want a lineup of Jamal, Gordon, Jokic, Timmy, Strawther. I would love that. Realistically, I would love this is the best shooting team we've seen around Jokic, and that's 4 guys who can knock it down from the three-point line. So imagine that. If you double Jokic, good luck because there's an open three-point shooter somewhere, and you can even eliminate Aaron Gordon in that conversation, say maybe he's not the best three-point shooter, even though stats would say the complete opposite, that he 100% was last year. But if you're able to eliminate that, and then you bring in a guy like Cam Johnson, who's arguably a better shooter, around Jokic, and if you're doubling Jokic, then you're dishing it out to Cam. When defense goes to step up to Cam, he's able to dish it out to Strawther. Strawther can dish it over to Timmy. Timmy could dish it over to Jamal, and now it's a knockdown 3, even if Jokic pops back out to the three-point line. Denver has the opportunity to play the perfect lineups around Jokic this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see more than one starting 5, and that's something I'm going to get to in next episode, as well as covering a little bit more of Deron Holmes. But there is one more topic I do want to talk about today, and that is that the 76ers now let go of another player. Now, we saw Lonnie Walker leave the NBA again. He was a former 76er. Now we're seeing another guy who I think it could be a decent pickup for Denver if they want to use that last roster spot right now, and that is Ricky Council. Now, he's not amazing by any means, but he was released. He's 23 years old. He averaged 7.3 points per game last year. The only thing that I'm not set on is that he was not a good shooter whatsoever from the three-point line last year when he was getting the opportunities to shoot. I think that maybe Denver could bring him in as a depth piece, and I was talking in the community. Denver has a pretty good system being built around them right now. Their farm looks pretty good when it comes to guys like Brown, Strawther, Watson, Deron Holmes. You have some names in there of guys who they can develop. But this is an opportunity to go get a guy who had a bad shooting season, was obviously released by a team that's going to need to rebuild and has a young core, is 23 years old, was able to average 7 points. Maybe bring him in for cheap on a few-year deal, maybe a 2-3 year deal. Try to develop him. He's not terrible. Like I said, he was averaging 7.3 points. Wasn't the best shooter. Have him work with guys like Tim Hardaway, Strawther, even though Strawther and him are probably the same age, right around there. Jokic, Gordon, Cam Johnson, and work on his three-point shooting. Putting him around Jokic as a depth piece, the last guy on the roster who may not touch the floor, but you're able to develop him and maybe lock him down for a few more years, I don't think would be the worst decision in the world. Now, I've been covering, I do want a backup point guard more than anything right now, but if you're going to bring in another depth wing, I wouldn't mind it whatsoever because I love the idea of having a bunch of wings with guys like Jokic and Val who can actually pass the ball. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you guys for checking it out. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. If you guys do want me to cover anything, please leave it down below and I will get to it within the next couple episodes. I'll catch you guys later.